Welcome to the Blending In podcast, where we chat with innovative educators who are integrating EdTech. I'm your host, Ashley Yazarlu, and I'm so glad you're listening in today. As teachers, we don't often get the chance to see into the classrooms of our colleagues, but by listening today, you'll get an auditory peek into Aaron Coyle's PE class at Hemet Elementary School. So, hey, Aaron.
Hi, Ashley. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, a little bit about how I came to learn about who you were. I'm actually an instructional coach, and I have an elementary school PE teacher on my caseload this year. And I tend to work primarily with secondary teachers. And so coaching elementary school teachers is like way outside of my comfort zone. And so I reached out to some of my fellow TOSAs here and I said, hey, I've got this PE teacher that I'm coaching. Who's another great PE teacher that I could take them to see? And they recommended you. And so my
That's nice.
my coachee and I came to see you a couple weeks ago, and that's how I came in contact with you and kind of learned about who you are and saw you teaching. And then I was like, oh my goodness, this guy needs to be on the podcast.
Mm. Yeah, that was fun when you guys came. It's always exciting when people come by and get to see kind of what you do and
Yeah.
notice, I guess.
So tell me a little bit about your background in teaching and how you ended up where you're at today.
Yeah, so I've been teaching for maybe 20 years or more. I started off my first full-time job, I think, was Arcadia Christian School in Arcadia, California. It was a K-8, and I did that for a couple years. And then we moved down to Menifee, and I got a job in Hemet Unified, working at Fruitvale Elementary. And I was supposed to be split between two sites, and then somebody wanted that job for some reason, and I got the job of Fruitvale, and I was there for maybe 15 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so I was there a long time. And then had to move between Fruitvale and Costin Elementary, and I had to split my time, and I didn't love that. So then I had the opportunity to come here. Both of the administrators I had worked with previously at Fruitvale, and so I knew both of them, and they were courting me to come over here. And yeah, I like the idea of being in one site. So this is my first year at Hemet Elementary. Definitely exciting and new because, like I said, I was at Fruitvale for 15 years. And so I had built that program up, and like all the kids knew me. I knew all the kids. And I could just tell them, hey, we're going to do this. And then they would actually go and do it. And it made my job super easy. And so now I get the fun and exciting task of kind of rebuilding and like, okay, like let's put in some procedures and structure here at Hemet Elementary. And so that's
Yeah.
been fun. But one of the reasons I got into teaching was because my dad, he was a truck driver. He actually used to deliver dairy
Oh,
to
wow.
some schools and 7-Elevens, and he would wake up like at 2:30, 3:30 a.m., go do his route, and then, and he told me one time, find some, don't do manual labor, don't do what I do. Find something you enjoy doing. That stuck with me, and I didn't know what that was for a while. And I was like, well, I like sports, but it was more than just like doing athletics. I like teaching, and I like seeing light bulbs go off. I love coming to work.
That's awesome. Like I see, you're one of our veteran PE teachers having all this experience, but it's almost like you're starting over in year one at a new school. And I've had that experience too of having to start over at different school sites with different curriculum, different school culture, different student dynamics, demographics. And it is like starting over year one and like
Yeah,
redoing all of the rules and the procedures and setting
yeah. So
expectations. Yeah.
I'm not as good as I think I am. Like I was like, okay, like at Fruitvale, I was like, okay, I've settled in. This is good.
You were in
And
your
now it's
comfort
like,
zone.
oh geez, this is different. Like the kids have no idea what's going on. So uh
Yeah. Jumping into like restructuring a program at a different site. And I'm thinking about all the planning that has to go into that. So how do you plan for not just like the restructuring of the program, but PE instruction in general, and like how do you have time to collaborate with different colleagues? I know like sometimes we're in silos and we teach alone at a site, and then other times we have partner teachers. Like, what's your setup like?
For planning, I mean, I think when I came in here, the goal was to build culture and community. And so we did a lot of team building at the beginning of the year. And like I always do that, but I think it was really important this year, especially when it's hot in those first 5 months. It feels
Yeah.
like it's always hot in Hemet, but building that community and like trust with the students, with me, and then with each other. So we did a lot of team building, and so that was important for me. And it was, as far as planning goes, I usually try to plan out the year, just kind of a general map, and that usually changes, but like at least I have an idea of where we're going. And then as
I
far
like a
as
roadmap.
yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit of a roadmap, and we take detours and yeah, change it up a little bit. There's bumps in the road for sure. But as far as the collaboration piece, yeah, I'm also the PE coordinator for Hemet Elementary Schools. So we meet at least once a month. We do online stuff as well as meet in person. Usually I'm trying to check in online and just see what else is going on. And I used to use Twitter a little bit more, but that was a great resource for me to connect with other PE teachers just to see what they were doing. But
Yeah.
meeting with other teachers in the district and trying to draw them out and say, okay, like what do you do for this standard or that standard, and just trying to kind of build everyone up
That's
simultaneously.
good. Do you find that your fellow PE teachers are willing to collaborate and share ideas, or do you have, you know, people that are maybe kind of resistant to collaboration and kind of want to do their own thing? And if so, how do you deal with that?
It's a little bit of both. There's definitely some people that are a little shy, or I don't think it's that they don't want to share. I think it's they don't want to be, called out or say like you're doing something wrong. And so I think there's a
Mm,
big fear of teachers feeling like they're going to be exposed and like, oh, you've been doing this wrong for 10 years. Once the ball kind of gets rolling, then people are a little bit more willing to share, and they're, a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, there's people that, don't come to the meetings sometimes. And there's people that are always there, like ready to learn and ready to
yeah.
share. It can be a little challenging sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking on that challenge. Like I also work with teacher leaders and teams of teachers. And sometimes it's definitely challenging to get everybody on board and collaborating. But I appreciate the effort that you're putting in to cultivate those relationships with your colleagues and promote that spirit of collaboration, because ultimately the students are the ones that reap the benefits that when we're all on the same page and working together. Um, and you talked a little bit about building community, but let's talk about how you do that with your students. So I know like I saw a little bit of this when I was there with my coachee that day. And you seem to have really positive, respectful relationships with your students. So what are your strategies, either with or without technology, that you're using to kind of cultivate those relationships with kids?
Yeah, I think it starts with respect and just trying to get on their level. And like, even when I talk to the kids, especially the younger kids, just like physically going down to their level and looking them in the face, in their eyes, and like talking to them, whatever the issue is, if they're, off task or hitting or not knowing how to do the skill. I think that's a big thing. And, after you do that for a while, the kids actually understand that you care and you are for them and not against them. Like, I'm not just here to get you in trouble when you're off task. Like, I'm just trying to help you get better. And so that goes a long way once the students actually know that you are on their team, basically.
Yeah.
That's one of the strategies that I do, and I try to, facilitate that amongst students. Students helping students, like trying to pair the stronger students up with maybe some weaker students, and ones that have a little bit more social skills and saying like, hey, go be partners with that kid. He needs a, can you be my helper? That's another one, is just like, okay, you're my helper, and like you're my helper for my day. So I
Yeah.
have some tougher kids that are like, you're my buddy, and go do this, go do that. And they actually like to do that in elementary school. They're like, they love to help and
Of course.
do stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes they pick up my cones and wreck the field, and I have to say, no, I didn't ask you to do that. But for the most part, they're super helpful, and that
Yeah.
builds trust. Yeah.
So awesome that you said that. I'm actually doing a professional development series for some teachers in our district on student motivation.
Uh,
And we talk about the importance of communicating care and making eye contact. That is the like most underestimated like use of power that you have with kids, is just looking them in the eye. It's so important, like connecting with them on that human level. So I'm so glad to hear that you're doing that with your kids.
yeah. And before I start the lesson, like we're usually sitting down, and I'm like, okay, let's get eye contact. Like you can show respect by making eye contact, not talking when I'm talking, and not picking up rocks. Like, and okay,
Yes.
look at my eyeballs. Like, okay, I can
Leave
tell
the
you're not
rocks
ready.
on the
Yeah.
ground.
So many rocks. Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, communicating clear and simple expectations to kids is super important too, especially at that young age. And I love that you allow your students to kind of be helpers in the class, especially the students who may be the most needy. Those are the ones that often need a job to do to keep them busy. And this actually leads me into my next question. Like, you're giving students like a little bit of power there when you're letting them be a leader. So how are you promoting like voice and choice in the PE class in elementary?
Yeah, so we haven't totally got here yet at Hemet Elementary, but at Fruitvale, once I can trust the students, like I know they're not going to just go tackle each other and hurt each other, then, there's some opportunities for choice and for a little bit more opportunities to do things. So at my other school, we had this really cool wheel that the PTA built, I think, for a fall festival. And it was one of those like giant wheels, like imagine what's the
Wheel of
show? Like
Fortune
Wheel of
or
Fortune or Price is Right or
oh
something like that.
yeah.
It had the little tickers, and it had like, I
Yeah.
don't know, like 36 spots. And so I used that, and I made like an instant activity for each of those. And so we'd bring that out. And I think, I forget what I called it. It was like wheel. I forget. I had a clever name, but I forget it now. And so we would spin that wheel, or they would spin the wheel. And then whatever we landed on, we'd do that instant activity. And it would, only be like 1 or 2 minutes. But they really liked that because the wheel's just fun, and
Yeah.
it would like click and make noises, and just giving them choices like you can do this or this today. And they usually like that when they can choose what they want to do. And
Sure.
sometimes we'll do competitive games or non-competitive games, or yeah, different activities or skills. But to do that, first we have to establish a little bit of trust within the class and
Yeah.
have a little bit of procedures in place and structure. So we are building that, and we're making our way towards that.
So you think you're going to bring that wheel concept over to him at L? Because you said it was at Fruitville, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so something like that maybe. The one I want to do is what the Dude Perfect. Have you seen that? The Wheel Unfortunate.
Oh no, I haven't seen
Okay,
that.
so they have a Wheel Unfortunate, and then they're all like terrible things. I wouldn't do that in my classes, but maybe something pared down, like a smaller handheld wheel. Because the wheel at my other school, it was like,
A
I
giant
don't know,
wheel. Yeah.
four feet. Like it was big, and it was like ginormous. So I don't think I could build one over here, but I'd probably make something on the iPad actually,
Yeah,
and then
that's what I
just
was about to say. Like, bring in the tech. I know there's like the wheel of names, and
yes,
there's so many of them out there, different
yeah,
little tools. Actually, you had mentioned a tool the day that my coachee and I were there. It was an app
yeah.
that where you
Team
like,
Shake.
yeah, Team Shake. Tell me
Yeah.
about that.
So yeah, Team Shake is an app that allows you to place students in teams based on your needs. So if you need 4 teams, you can tell it, I need 4 teams. And then you can either shake it, which is actually pretty fun, or I'll give it the the iPad to the kid and they can shake it. They like that. Or you can just press a button that says shake and then it will give you the teams. And then you can read them out, or you can just say, here, look at here's the teams. And you can do it either way. You can either do it like I need 7 kids in each team, or I need, a total of 5 teams or whatever it is. And then you can also tell it like, I don't want Michael and Joey to be on the same team. Or you can
Strategic.
even
Yeah.
you can tell it like this kid is high skill level and this
Hmm.
one is low skill level, and it'll equal it out based on skill. And
That's
so
so cool.
yeah, so you can do partners, you can do whatever you want. So that's pretty useful. Um,
So do you think is
uh,
that tool your favorite tech tool, or is that just one of many that you use? Like, and
yeah,
like thinking of technology out at PE, like
yeah,
most people don't think PE teachers are using tech, but like
yeah,
you're using
yeah.
technology.
I kind of don't even notice it anymore because I've been using it so long. But when I don't have it, it's like, oh geez. So yeah, Spotify is huge. I mean, there's music. We just play music all the time, like in PE. It's like that makes it fun.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. I do the warm up on the voice memo. So I record my voice doing the warm up, and then I play that over the big loudspeaker. Loudspeaker? That's not a thing. The speaker. Um,
So yeah,
and
so what's the purpose of that? So you've recorded your voice and you're playing your voice. I saw you do this and I thought it was
yeah,
actually super awesome that you did this. But why did you start doing that in the first place?
I've done many different iterations of the warm up. Like I, yeah, pretty much every year I'm like, okay, let's try this, let's try this. And so I used to just lead the warm up myself. And then I used to have squad leaders where they would, there's like 6 rows of 6, and then each row would come up and lead. Each week would be a different, you know,
Student
time for the,
leader.
yeah, student leaders. And there was just a lot of needs that would come up during the warm up. Like someone was late, someone was hurt, someone got in a fight, someone was off task. And then if I wasn't like really like doing, I couldn't do both. So yeah, I just started recording it and then I would play it and the students would actually do it by themselves, and then I could go put out fires and I could walk around and say, okay, look how good this person's doing, everyone copy them. Or I could say, hey, let's get on task, or you're doing fake exercise, like they try to pretend like they're doing exercise.
Yeah.
And
So it essentially freed you up to
yeah,
manage the kids. I
yeah,
love
it
that.
kind of puts another one of me there.
Yes.
And
You're
so
like you just cloned yourself. I love
yeah,
it.
and the kids love routine. Like they know, like, okay, the routine is like I'm gonna run the lap, I'm gonna get on my dot, and then here comes the warm up. I know this one. I know what to do. At least yeah, I'm supposed to know what to do.
And then if they're
And then
not
they
knowing
do
what
it.
to do, you can tell them
Yeah,
because you're not leading the warm up. Your voice
or
is
they can
leading the warm
look to
up.
their neighbor and look, hey, copy that kid.
That's
So
so great. That's so great. And we actually try to encourage classroom teachers to do this. Like if you're going to repeat the same thing 6 times throughout the day,
yeah,
record it, and then it frees you up, and you could play it or have kids watch it on their devices, and
yeah.
it's just it's
I need
amazing.
that for when we do the dance unit because yeah, dancing for like 6 hours a day for 2 weeks is like, okay, that's a little tiring, but I have not figured that out yet. Because like they won't do it if you're not leading it. If you're like, all right, just do the steps, like they won't. Like you got to be up there like bringing it, or they're just not gonna do it. So
Yeah. I mean, so you're blending in the need for that traditional in-person direct instruction with the technology with the audio recordings into your PE class. That's just
yeah.
awesome.
Let me say one more thing. I also use the Google Sheets
Oh,
for
yeah.
my grades. So I failed to mention on the team shake, you can import class lists. So you don't have to type each name in,
Yeah,
which is kind of nice because I have all 500 kids at the school. We have like 15 or 16 classes, and I don't want to type each name. So,
of course. Yeah.
so I use Aries and then make a Google Sheet with everybody on there, and then you can import those. So yeah, I also use Google Sheets to do the grades, and that's pretty useful too to have it on the iPad.
And are you grading on like the skills they've accomplished based on standards?
Yeah, so like the first quarter, it felt like we didn't get too much done as far as skills based. So it's more on like it was standards based because it's standard 5, which is the community and culture and teamwork and sharing and caring. But yeah, usually I'm grading them on an individual skill
Yeah.
that we're working on.
That's awesome. I just you're just so dynamic. You made it look that day when we came to see you. You made what you were doing look so easy, but I know that you have to run into challenges. So what are some of the challenges that you run into when you're trying to use technology or implement technology in that outdoor PE setting?
There's always something like seemingly going wrong, but having my devices powered up is a big one. Like just making sure I plug them in and like that they're ready to go. So that's happened before where the devices have died, or so I bought a backup battery one time, and that was actually helpful. So I could just like bring that out and power up the devices. And then just sometimes the apps don't want to work. They're just like being really finicky.
Glitchy,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and it's like, okay, well,
This
we
happened to
just
us
got,
the other day with Google. Google just
yeah,
stopped working for like an hour. We were like,
yeah,
what is happening?
$1 billion company just stopped working, you know.
We're like,
So yeah, you just
teachers are
gotta
trying to pull
be,
up their slides and nope,
yep, you
not
just gotta
today.
be like have your plan B
Yeah,
and just kind of go with the flow and like know like it doesn't have to be perfect every time.
of
And,
course.
and like even if you don't use technology, like something usually goes wrong and you just have to be able to adapt to what the students need. Like they don't need you to have an iPad right now. They need you to just engage and get them
Yeah.
going. So
Yeah.
just yeah,
Just being adaptable, I think is what I hear you saying. Like be
yeah,
flexible, be adaptable. It's not always going to
yes.
work. It's not
So
always
for the
going to go
teachers
according to
who,
plan.
don't love technology, aren't used to it, they, will give it a half-hearted try and then something will go wrong and say, oh, see, told you, I knew it was going to break. It's like, well, that's not exactly like you gotta trust it and work on it and like get good
Yeah.
at it. Just like any skill, you have to like work at it.
It does take practice. And I've told people this before, prior to coming to Hemet Unified in my other teaching experiences in other districts, I was a Microsoft user and I
Mm,
had to learn all of Google when I came here.
yeah.
I had really no experience with any of Google Workspace except for like basic Gmail and before I came here, and that was 6 years ago. And now I'm pretty savvy with the platform. There's still things like that I'm learning all the time, but it's the willingness. You have to be willing to learn and try again and make mistakes, mess up and recover. And I think that puts people in a vulnerable spot and not everybody's always willing to do that, but embracing that mindset makes it a lot easier to fail and then get back up and try again.
Yep.
Um, speaking of like the failure aspect, right? A lot of times we see that students aren't fully understanding what it is they're supposed to be learning or doing in the class. They just think I need to just participate or complete this task, but they don't really understand what it is they're learning. And this is the first time I had ever seen anybody do this in the PE setting. And I saw you sit the kids on the ground. You were in a chair and you had these like laminated I can statements
Yeah.
that you were going over with the students before they went into the activity. And I was just like, my mind was blown because I had never seen a PE teacher do that.
Which is unfortunate that I'm the only one in the world that does
I
that.
mean,
But
there
I
probably
know
are
there's
other
someone else
teachers
out there.
doing it, but I had just never seen it. And
Yeah.
I'm probably not out on the PE, area often enough to see that. But can you tell me like how you started doing that, why you're doing that, and is it something that works for your students?
Yeah, when I first came to Hemet, actually one of the first few years we did unpacking the standards,
Mm-hmm.
which I at the time I just thought was so stupid, to be honest. I'm like, why am I circling verbs and underlining and like
Yeah.
get me out of this PD. I don't like it. And it actually was like the building blocks of like what I do now. So yeah, I mean that's what I teach is the standards. So like I just go through and like, okay, I gotta these are all the things I need to teach. So I was like, well, how do I do that? And how do I get the kids to see? And so, yeah, at one point I had a book and it has, uh, I printed out all the standards and I color coded them like first grade, second grade, third grade, and then I would just use that book. And then I ended up laminating them long ways. So I had like a sequence, like a scope and sequence. Um, so I had first grade, second grade, third grade, and those were laminated on the wall. And then I would use like a little highlighter. And then anytime I would teach the standard, I'd kind of put a dot next to it or cross it off. And then
Mm,
we would try to revisit it later. And I'd try to get to most of the standards. There's a lot. So
yeah.
I don't get to all of them, but and then at some point I was like, well, it'd be good for the kids to like actually see what we're doing. And so then I had all the standards printed up really big. I don't know the exact size, but maybe like a 12 by 16. But they were pretty big. And they were just the standards. And so there was a lot of academic language that I would have to like wade through and like
Translate.
yeah, I was like, okay, what does this mean? And the kids, they were pretty like some of the standards are crazy for second grade. Anyway, and then I found these I can statements from Ben Landers, who runs a awesome website called the PE Specialist. And so, yeah, so I downloaded those and then I had the print shop print them up. I kind of wish they were bigger, but they're just a regular paper size. And so those are awesome. They come with the skills, like what are they going to do? What are they supposed to know? They're awesome. So I just bring those out, and we're working on kicking this week. So I brought out all the kicking standards, and then I show them the ones that we're going to work on today. And it's like, okay, this is what we're going to be working on, and so they know the goals, and then we just work towards those.
Yeah. I mean, it's so great like that you're communicating to them, what it is they're actually learning in PE. Because a lot of times kids just think, oh, I'm going to PE, it's just the fun class. I'm just going to go there to have fun. But they're actually going there to learn and practice and perfect skills, right? Like that they're going
Yeah,
to take on with them beyond elementary school to whatever sports that they're going to play middle, high school, and beyond. So
yeah.
I love that you're
So
doing that.
yeah, I actually got a little bit of pushback from the kids. They're like, can't we just, well, the OP teacher, he just let us come and play games. I'm like, well, we can't really play a game of soccer if you don't know how to kick. And like, to be honest, our students, like the skill level is pretty low. And so like we can't catch or throw or really kick. And so it's like, I would love to get to the games, but to do that, you actually have to have skill. So that makes the game fun. Otherwise, you're just like, it'd be very frustrating to play a game
Yeah.
of tennis and not be able to get it over the net.
Yeah.
So we start with the skills, and then hopefully we can, and I try to modify, usually we work on skills, but then we usually play a game that's a modified way to practice the skill and make it a little
For
bit more
sure.
competitive or game like. But it was interesting, like the kids were not used to uh, working on skills.
Yeah. I mean, you're essentially changing the culture that the school is
Yeah.
used to experiencing into a more like focused, like skill-based, we're learning culture, but you're still letting them have fun. Those kids that day when we saw them, they were having lots of fun in your class.
Yeah, we have a good time usually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So come back in 3 years. I cannot wait what it's going to be like in 3 years. That's
I'm excited to
my
see.
vision. Like once I get my first graders that I've had, first grade, second grade, and third grade, it's like, okay, we're going to be rocking and rolling. And I actually started going into the kindergarten. Like I don't teach kindergarten. But Wednesdays I have a little bit of a lighter load. So I actually started going into kindergarten classes so they can see my face, and like, so when they come next year for first grade, they like know me and they already know
Oh,
a little bit. So it's like, okay, we gotta get everybody here
yeah.
involved. So
You're starting to build
I saw,
relationships and
yeah, saw my
credibility.
TKs and my kindergarten, and like they say hi to me now on campus, and I don't even, they're not even in my classes. So
That's
it's,
awesome. Like
yeah,
you're building the relationships and your credibility as, the PE teacher
yeah,
from the onset. Um so this is making me think like you already have like long-term plans of, the progress that you want to make with the department and the program, not just I'm here to show up and teach PE today. Like you're
Right.
invested. And I love that so much. Like, thank you for doing that for our students.
Yeah.
So, first year teacher, what advice would you have for a first year PE teacher? Like things that you wish you would have known in year one that you know now?
First few years, you like have permission to kind of muck it up and to like not be great. Like you
Yeah,
can make some mistakes and you can find your feet. So everything doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be staying after school till 6 p.m. Every day and like, burning the candle at both ends. So I would say work hard, do your best, but like know you're gonna, make mistakes and then just learn from those. Like I always like my first lesson of the day is usually way different than my last lesson because I'm making little
adjusting.
tweaks and
Mhm.
adjusting and even class by class and almost student by students, like what does this kid need is different from what that kid needs. So I gotta give him something a little bit different. So yeah, so and even class by class, like I will give the exact same instructions and two very different things will happen. Like one class will be like, okay, they got it and they're good to go. And the other class is like running around like chickens with their head cut off. So knowing that is like, okay. And then there's just going to be days where it feels like the kids conspire against you. And you're like, and I don't know how they know, like on the same day, we're just going to all not listen together. But those days happen. But
I'm convinced it has to do with the moon phases.
yeah, I think so. And wind. Wind is
And
a big
wind.
one. Like look out for wind. Like windy days, like like when it's rainy, they get a little crazy, but when it gets windy, they're just batty. They're just like,
Yeah.
what's this stuff blowing? So yeah, so I would say knowing those days come, but those days are few and far between. And like knowing that as a PE teacher, I would say I have the best job in the world. Like I get to come and get to play with kids that for the most part they all want to be there. They
Mhm.
all want to please their teacher for the most part and they all want to have fun and so I can do that. That's not a chore to come, but there are days there's like, oh man, this is a grind and it's a
Yeah.
little bit more difficult than it should be or has to be, but for the most part, I would say, you want to love your job and show up with a good attitude and have fun with it.
That's great. That's great advice. Great words of wisdom for any new teachers come into
Yep.
the profession. What about PE teachers who may be tech hesitant with blending in technology in the PE setting? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah. Well, first I would ask them like, what advice would you give a student who doesn't want to play soccer? They're like, I'm nervous. I'm not good. I'm afraid everyone's gonna laugh at me. And then we would say, just try it, do your best. And it's the same like advice we would give a student is the same advice we need to take as teachers. Like we just need to jump in there and try new things to get better. Like we don't want to have a fixed mindset. We want to have that growth mindset to grow and to get better. And to do that, you have to try new things and you have to be willing to fail. I tell
Yeah.
my kids all the time, like, oh, that means you're learning. Like when you made a mistake, your brain is actually going to go back and fix that and try to do it better the next time. And so the more repetitions you get, the more opportunities you have to grow. So failure is actually opportunities for learning. But I would say give it time and don't just quit when something, doesn't go your way.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the first grader who pouts and just doesn't get it, just goes in the corner like, mm, you know, don't be like a first grader. You gotta keep trying.
Yeah, and like this is consistent when I've been speaking to teachers on the podcast. And it's similar advice no matter the subject is like keep trying, don't give up,
Yeah.
um, do your best.
Do one thing at a time. You don't have to like, you go to a conference and you're like, oh, that was amazing. I gotta implement all these new things. Like you can't implement 15 things.
No.
You can
Yeah.
do one. Just do one. And then once you feel comfortable with that one, like add one more and then you
Yeah.
and it takes time to like build.
It's
Like you
like
can't
going
just,
slow to go fast. I mean,
yeah,
kind of like you did with your standard situation. That was a
right.
progression over years until you got to
Yeah,
the point where you're showing them these laminated I can statements, which you even just said in our conversation. I wish they were bigger. So I
yeah.
assume at some point those ones will get worn out and you're going to reprint them and you're going to be
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm going to print them bigger this time around. So you're iterating and getting better each time that you do it. I just love it so much.
Yep.
Well, Aaron, I have is so enjoyed talking to you today. It's such a refreshing conversation that we just had, and I just am delighted that you are doing what you're doing for our elementary school students in their PE class at Hemet. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. That was a good time.
Thanks for listening to the Blending In podcast. I hope you gleaned some inspiration to blend in EdTech and some top-notch transformational techniques into your instruction. You can find show notes and resources from today's episode on our website, blendinginpodcast.com. If you loved what you heard today, leave a review and hit the subscribe button to get notified when new episodes are dropped. Also, follow us on social media and use hashtag blendinginpodcast to add to the conversation. Until next time, don't hesitate to innovate and integrate.